bosskillers.com and get your mods installed. We're going to pull these two guys. That's not what we're looking for. So here's some examples illustrating the point. The newest app, these guys, yeah. The Defias Pillager. This guy, in every single day of World of Warcraft, this guy is in the top 10 as far as player killers. These guys kill them more than anything. And we just nerfed it, I think. We just nerfed it. Patch 2.2? Yeah, we just nerfed them, so it's kind of sad because it's like this rite of passage for all of us. When the new WoW players come in, we're like, dude, the Defias Pillagers, you guys have it so easy these days. Lava packs and Molten Core. Scott has instructed me that these aren't actually hard, just people sucked on them. So, sorry to break it to everybody. Yeah, then we have the post-Twin Amps trash. Yes, widely hated. Skeletal ushers before they can be shackled. The graveyard was really close. I don't see why people complain about these guys. It's like right there. Not really a big deal. So then we're going to talk about respawn. Like most players think it shouldn't spawn in the first place, so why should it respawn? So respawn gives a sense of urgency to the dungeon. It also can add to giving that feeling to a group who's not really supposed to be there that maybe it's time to leave the dungeon. It also prevents unlimited tries on a boss. A lot of people don't buy this, but I do, having been a raid leader before. Sometimes you need the game to tell you it's okay to stop trying for the night. You're not going to beat it with these people, no matter. And the respawn lets you guys just blame Blizzard. Oh, Blizzard, respawn, it sucks. I know, man. Go bump my thread. You know, they'll handle it. So let's talk about respawn. We've got Stratham. It used to respawn too quickly, especially those gargoyles. They were very annoying. Razorgore had no trash, except in the encounter, and it all respawned in the encounter. Razorgore is an example of an encounter that gives you unlimited tries with no trash, and the follow-up to that, or actually not the follow-up to that, is Broodlord Lashlayer is an example of sometimes we put the trash right into the encounter. If we were to have Broodlord be his own encounter, it would actually be a lot more difficult, but we factor into that difficulty what it takes a raid to clear through and take care of the traps. Then there's Veil, who of course had unlimited tries. And this is an example of actually where we want our trash respawn to be, something like Prophet Scarum or Adamant the Huntsman. We want you to get a good number of tries before you have to deal with respawn, if you have to deal with it at all. So I think in those examples, and you're also not clearing a lot of trash, like it only takes about 15 minutes to clear through the horses in front of Adamant. It's not a game over for the night, but it definitely encourages some urgency and maybe keeps some people from going AFK for 40 minutes before the boss. Reliquary of Souls and Black Temple also. Wow, lots of Reliquary of Souls fans. Jeff also made that encounter too. Reliquary of Souls is another example of, like Broodlord, an encounter that segues you right into the boss fight. Okay, so our final tuning point that we can adjust is reward. This is everybody's favorite. So reward does a bunch of things for us. It gives you a reason to kill. It could be money, it could be items, it could be reputation. But what you're really looking for as a player, when you're working your way through a dungeon, you want a reason that when you see a pull over there, it's like, oh yeah, we gotta kill that. And really what you're looking for is to make my character better. That's all it comes down to is, I want to make my character better, and what's the reason that you're giving me for doing that? So I'm going to go through some good examples and bad examples of trash. So Hyjal used to not have any items or reputation on the trash, and it had a lot of trash. So coming up in an upcoming patch, you can see the loot sparkles on the ghouls there. And also the reputation reward. So coming up in Highjaw, you'll get reputation and items for killing the trash. So we'll fix that. Some of people's favorite things are the rings out of Black Temple or the vortexes. The rings, it's kind of funny. They're not supposed to be that good, but hey, it happened. You guys just go ahead and enjoy them. But it gives a lot of people a reason to farm trash in Black Temple. Although they shouldn't be a hunter by themselves. We're on to you, don't worry. Then we have the Ghostly Philanthropist, a favorite in a lot of guilds because these guys just drop a ton of gold and make up for all that repair costs that you have to deal with. Everybody's favorite trash. The monstrous Kaleri. Oh, come on, it's like 12 gold for 5 minutes. Is it really that hard? So these guys are getting loot and reputation in the upcoming patch. So, but they've now dazed you 3 times as much. So I'm kidding about the days. That's just a joke. Okay, so now I'm going to hand you over to Scott Mercer, the lead encounter designer, and he's going to get into encounter tuning and sort of difficulty and talk about things on the higher level. So take it away, Scott. Thanks, Jeff.
So enough of the trash talk, let's talk about how we actually make really cool boss encounters. First, we have to ask ourselves a bunch of questions when we start talking in meetings about particular encounters. And the very first one is, well, how many people are actually going to be fighting the encounter? There's a pretty big difference between a 5-person encounter and a 25-person encounter. In a 5-person encounter in a dungeon, all we really know is that there's a tank, there's a healer, and 3 other people. In a 25-person raid, we know that every class is going to be represented. Every single spell and ability will be able to be used by players to defeat the encounter. And then another important question, what gear do we expect? Now this isn't just about what kind of epics you have, how many epics you have. There's also a lot of other kinds of gear that come into designing encounters. Things like an Ixia scale cloak. When we designed the Nefarian encounter, we expected everyone to have these, and it was part of the encounter. There's also things like resist gear. You guys love that, but that's a very important thing when it comes time for us designing encounters. If we're going to hit you with a whole lot of arcane spells, we need to know whether or not you're going to expect it to have arcane resist gear. And also, there's also some type of gear that's also pretty fun. When we started designing the Kael'thas encounter, we wanted to, one of the very cool things about the encounter was we want to give you these amazing weapons during the fight. As you progress through the Kael'thas encounter, Kael stops for a little while and summons these animated weapons, and when you defeat them, you actually go down to loot them and you get these awesome legendaries. And these are by far, these ridiculously powerful weapons that, well, unfortunately you can't take them to the PvP arena, but they're really cool when you've got them. Next we have what makes sense based on the lore and art. And this is actually a pretty huge thing whenever we start talking about an encounter. When we started designing Ragnaros, and you look at him, well, he's the Fire Lord, so you're going to get hit with a ton of fire spells, and he's got a really big hammer, so he's going to pound your face in. The room itself is a really huge, tall room, and when Jeff and I looked at the room and started thinking about Ragnaros, we're like, we're going to punch you really high. So another room and bit of art that really determined what the encounter might be like is the Thaddeus room. Thaddeus, who's the art, it's based a lot on like the Frankenstein story. And you also see the room that has these electrical conduits. We knew that electricity was going to be a big part of the fight, so that's where we came up with the idea of polarity shift and the other electrical abilities he had. So then also the question of how does the encounter fit? And this is just sort of a way of saying that whenever we design a raid zone or a dungeon, we don't want every single encounter to be the same. We don't want every single encounter to be a huge spell casting fight. We don't want everyone to be huge melee and the tank takes a huge amount of damage all the time. We don't want every fight to be an ads fight. You need a really nice variety so when you're going through the dungeon, you have a really good time. So the next thing we'll talk about is actually how we add challenge to raid encounters. One of the things that makes these raid encounters fun is that they're challenging. So I want to talk a little bit about the various ways we add challenge. The first one here is what we